Good morning. Welcome to the Bellingham Unitarian Fellowship, also known as BUF. We're really glad you're here with us this morning, here in person or on Zoom. I'm Carrie Koehnline, and I've been a member here about 30 years. I'll be your celebrant this morning, and I'm joined by two speakers, our minister, Sonny McMillan, and Kevin Allen-Schmid, who was the music director here for many years and much beloved. We want to especially welcome those of you who are new today, and we encourage you to come downstairs after the service for coffee and conversation. And you might want to pick up a red mug so we can tell that you're new and welcome you appropriately. Also, just a reminder to those of us who aren't new that people who are wearing red name tags, that's also an indicator that they're new and need a special welcome. And I want to welcome Ian's grandmother, Phoebe, who's visiting us from Idaho. We have a couple announcements. There'll be a potluck lunch downstairs today, right after the coffee hour, or sort of merged with it. And you're welcome to attend whether or not you brought something. We hope you'll stay. And also on Thanksgiving Day at 1 o'clock downstairs, Mark Allen will be hosting a Thanksgiving dinner. And there are lots of details about that and lots of other really important things in your order of service. So now, please be sure that your phones are turned off or silenced, and Ian is going to bring us into our time of worship. In 2017, I got to be part of a trip to Transylvania in Romania. We were a group of 43 members and friends of BUF, many of whom are here today, I think. And most of us who went were members of the choir. Kevin Allen-Schmid, who will be speaking this morning, was our leader. We traveled in a bus around the countryside where shepherds live in little cottages, and people still use carts pulled by horses. We sang in ancient Unitarian churches with fortified walls, were welcomed warmly and feasted. And we got to visit our partner church in Magyarszovat, where we were greeted like family. Their version of Unitarianism is really different from ours. Everything about their lives is different. But they are an important part of our root system of beliefs and principles, of free thinking and tolerance. It meant something to me that we came together and celebrated the ties between us while respecting our differences. As we light our chalice this morning, we dedicate it to all the deep roots that support this fellowship. Now, please join me and Sunny as we recite our covenant. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service gives it life. Celebrating our diversity and joined by a quest for truth, we work for peace and honor all creation. This is our covenant.
Good morning. I'm Sunny. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm so glad you all are here today. We have been talking a lot lately at Buff about history, and this service today is a culmination of sorts, a service devoted in part to some aspect of the history of this congregation or our Unitarian Universalist tradition. Much of what I will talk about in my reflection today comes from this little book, Unitarian Universalism, A Narrative History, by UU historian and minister David Bumbaugh. It's a classic and one we referred to often in my UU history class at Divinity School. In the introduction to his book, Bumbaugh writes, Unitarian Universalism is a peculiar religious tradition in that what binds us is not so much a shared theology or even a shared response to the experience of the sacred. It is more so a shared history. We are one people because of our inchoate understanding of the journey through time which we share. We are enraptured by a mythic sense of having shared a journey which began by rejecting conventional views and has been defined by a continuing struggle toward a personally satisfying understanding of the self, of the nature of the human venture, of the meaning of existence. We know that our ancestors in the period of the Reformation were heroic souls who went out from the safety of the Roman Church, who tarried only a while in the confines of more conventional Protestantism, and who dared to carve out a religious response to the times which reflected their own individual experience. It is this we have in common with them, and it is this sense of historical continuity which makes of us a movement. It is this sense of historical continuity that we will explore today. As we briefly mentioned last week, the Buff History Wall is up in the social hall and ready for your contributions. We would love for you to use the Post-it notes provided on a nearby table to post your own recollections about Buff, your time here, meaningful events, whatever stands out that you think is worth remembering. The transitions team went through the Buff archives and found some key moments that they have posted to get the ball rolling. And I want to particularly thank Catherine Allen and Sky Hedman, two of our transitions team members who did a great deal of work on this wall. And I'm going to invite Catherine up now just to speak for a couple minutes on why this project was meaningful to her and why we hope that you will find it meaningful as well.
Good morning. At the time of the first transition team meeting, Sunny suggested that as we get to know her and she gets to know us, that a timeline with some history of this congregation could also help us become better acquainted with our own past. The idea caught on with a few of us, and eventually it began to take on a life of its own. I'm still relatively new here, and I cannot claim institutional memory, which many of you have. And our timeline for creating that timeline was rather short. So, Given what we could find, it became great fun to work on it. Our Buff website does have a column on the history of our church. And as time went by, a number of scrapbooks and boxes and old photographs, remember when they came with negatives, were found tucked away here and there in the building. I also discovered some Facebook posts, old ones, but still with some really interesting history. And the existence of the timeline came into being. Here are just a few of my own favorite discoveries. I was intrigued to find out that the first known Unitarian sermon here in this area was preached by a traveling preacher in 1891. And I really, really loved learning that there were also Unitarian women, missionaries, as they were called, in this area in the late 1800s. Among them, some women likely from the Prophetic Sisterhood in Iowa. That's the area where I found my way to a Unitarian church. Moving forward, how interesting to learn that after the Unitarian message grew for some years, then 100 years ago, in 1925, the few remaining here disbanded and sold their church building. Things were on the quiet side for about 30 years, but in 1956, 21 souls gathered to form the Bellingham Unitarian Church Fellowship. Next year will mark 60 years. Time for a party? Moving forward another 40 years, in 1985, on the first day of the first service here in this building, the old building, a bagpiper accompanied those who walked over from the old church to the new church. Very nice touch. I savored finding out about the programs that came into being in this congregation and then grew so large that they had to find their own facilities, many of them having to do with feeding the hungry. This timeline downstairs is just a beginning. It's a very partial framework, but please make it more complete, as Sonny said, by adding something about yourself, your observations, and your place in our ongoing history. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. And the potluck after the service today is a perfect time to be down there and add your contribution. So exploring our history is interesting and it can even be fun, but history is also important in its honoring of what has come before. In our recollection, we have the opportunity to acknowledge just how much has been sacrificed in our human evolution and the collective raising of consciousness over time. So I also want to take a moment and acknowledge that this Thursday, November 20th, is Transgender Day of Remembrance. This day was set aside to memorialize those who have been killed due to anti-transgender hatred and prejudice. As we deepen into this sacred space today, let's take a moment to honor and remember all those who have died, those seen and unseen, names known and unknown. I will share a prayer crafted by Reverend Sunshine Jeremiah Wolf. Reverend Wolf, who identifies as genderqueer and transgender, is the regional lead for our Pacific Western region of the Unitarian Universalist Association. Following their prayer, we'll take a few moments of silence and simply breathe together as we remember. On Transgender Day of Remembrance, we remember those who have been murdered for being who they are, those who face violence on a daily basis, those who have lost loved ones, and those who worry for loved ones. May we come to a time when we cease to shame children around gender roles and expression, where we allow freedom and exploration of identity and expression, and to a world that operates from love, especially when things are difficult and confusing. May all of us who live with the threat of violence find support, strength, community, hope, and safety from violence. And now let us be in silence together. And now Carrie and Kevin will lead us in our first hymn.
The hymn is 1043 in your teal hymn book, Székely Áldás, which means the blessing from the Székely region. Let's remain seated for this so you can enjoy Matt and Allegra playing the violin and the guitar. They're going to play through the song one full time, and then we will sing together the top line in Hungarian. If you want to see how that's pronounced, at the bottom of the page is a phonetic version. Just look at the italics at the bottom of the page and sing it the way it looks. Then we'll sing the second line in English, which is a different tune. And then Carrie will sing line 1 and I'll sing line 2, and you can choose whichever one you like.
Good morning, everyone. I want to invite all the children to come a little closer because we're going to the Wonder Box again today. And we have something different in it. Those who were here last week, the kids explained that at the beginning of our lessons, we introduce our topic by trying to figure out what's in the Wonder Box. Here, Ripley. The month's theme is gratitude, and we are going to focus on an aspect of gratitude today, and the Wonder Box is going to help us figure out what that is. Any thoughts about what you feel in there? Like, is it soft? Is it hard?
Kind of feels like it's covered in a tissue.
Interesting. Any other thoughts?
I think it was. I don't know what it is.
Okay, does somebody want to open it? I know, I think everyone wants to open it. Here, do you want to maybe give it to this little friend here? Hi. Marta was right. It was covered in a kind of a tissue. What is it?
Donut.
Say it real loud.
A donut.
It's a donut. Okay, we might have some of these upstairs. Okay, what do you think this has to do with gratitude? An eyeball? Well, let's start first. This is an apple cider donut. Are there other kind of donuts you like?
Chocolate donut.
A chocolate donut?
Apple cider donut.
Me too.
I kind of like those donuts which they're not like round like that one, but they have like filling inside of them.
Ooh, okay, that's interesting. Well, what do you notice about this donut? Like, what do you notice about most donuts?
They're circles. They're circles.
Yeah, they're circles. Teddy?
Can I eat that?
Well, speaking of circles and donuts with filling, what's in this donut? What's in the middle?
A hole.
Yes, there's a hole in the middle. And this donut is kind of like gratitude in that if we only focus on what's missing when we feel sad, is that going to help us feel better?
Maybe.
Maybe. Anyone here, when you feel sad, have to listen to a couple sad songs first before you get it together and try and fix your problems? Those long car rides alone? How about you? What do you do when you're sad?
I just walk away.
You just walk away. Yeah, maybe someone's making you feel sad and you're like, no, I'm good.
My favorite hobby is reading, so I go up to my room and start reading.
Marta has a strategy. So this donut, our theme today is about how gratitude gives us hope when we're having a hard time. When we're having a hard time, if we only focus on the middle, we might feel mad or sad. But if we can focus on the sweet stuff that's all around, it might help us feel better. Like Marta likes to read. That's a wonderful, wonderful thing that she loves to do. So when she doesn't feel well, she might go read. Also, what if it's raining out? Does anyone ever feel kind of sad when it's raining? Like, were you going to go to a birthday party that was outside? Has that ever happened to you? No, I've been rained out of birthday parties or weddings or all kinds of things. But you just focus on the good, right? Like the rain is making the flowers grow. Or if it's like a wedding, the wedding will go on and there's love all around. So what about when you go up to Sunday school? Do you guys sometimes get tired of listening to me talk? Sometimes. But do we have fun too?
Yes.
Okay, so that's what we're going to do today. We're going to focus on the sweet stuff. And that is our lesson for today. Let's sing our kids up. Okay.
We hold you in our love as you go, as you go. May your heart be at peace as you go. To nurture the spark of your precious life. We hold you in our love as you go. We hold you in our love as you go, as you go. May your heart be at peace as you go. To nurture the spark of your precious life. We hold you in our love as you go. Before Kevin and Sunny share their reflections with you this morning, I want to invite you to take a few moments just to settle in. You might want to close your eyes or at least soften your gaze. And just notice the gentle rhythm of your own breath, like a breeze blowing through you, like the soft breeze through the branches of a tree. Let there be a little more breathing space around you and inside you. And let yourself now bring your awareness to the people that form the roots of our fellowship. There are many different roots, but all of them were willing to break the norms, to do something that wasn't expected. And some of them were willing to risk danger, even risk their lives. This religion came from somewhere. And as we're bringing gratitude into our awareness, let's bring some gratitude for everyone who took risks to make this possible. We're living in times that might be asking a lot of us, that might be asking us to be courageous. So it's helpful to remember the courage in our roots. And now, if your eyes are closed, you might want to gently open them and look around at the people who are gathered here today with gratitude that they've shown up and that they are part of this tree, this ever-evolving spirit of Unitarian Universalism that we embody here at Buff. Thank you.
So I'm Kevin Allen-Schmid. I'm the chair of the Buff Partner Church Committee. I'd like to thank Reka Zoltan and George Boer, members of this congregation who have been leading that committee for years and who have Hungarian roots, are fluent. That's the language they speak at home. They're a little fragile in health now, so they're not here, but we're thinking of them. They live in Bellingham. And thank them for their facilitating our partnership with Magyarszovat all these years. This is an embroidery. We have a lot of things like this from our partners there. They have handmade for us. This says, Magyarszovati Unitarius Templum. You can translate that. Maybe not the first bit, which is in Hungarian and literally means Hungarian town. Because the Magyars are the Hungarians. And the Romanians call it Swatu, but they're very proud of their Hungarian roots, so they stick to their Hungarian language. They call their church the Hungarian Unitarian Church because Transylvania was traditionally, back to, King Sigismund. It was part of Transylvania, and their symbol shows how they have maintained their precarious existence there. It has a snake and a dove. They have to be as clever as a serpent, but as gentle as a dove. You'll see out in the narthex a display of things they've sent us, including some photos from our trip. And there is a photo there of Noemi Ban, who was a Bellinghamster, a survivor of the Holocaust. And she spoke Hungarian since her childhood, and she accompanied Bev Smith here, who went to Transylvania 3 times. And Noemi Ban was their bridge. They loved her, and how she, though she was Jewish, how she was the bridge between the American and the Transylvanian Unitarians. Carl Nyblade went with his son Ben, he was 21 years old then, Ben was, in 2001, and Carl said, hey, I'm going to come back. The next time I come, I'm going to bring the choir. And he did. I'm going to speak, I've been given 10 minutes today, and 5 minutes next Sunday. Today I'm speaking about the roots of our partnership, and next Sunday I'll speak about the vibrant future. There's a song I want to sing for you, and the words are on the insert in your bulletin. On the side, which doesn't have a picture, at the bottom, it says Foga Dalom, pledge or oath. And this is a song that was written by, I'll call him Reverend Levi. Fakete Levanta is his name. Go by Reverend Levi, and more about him next week. He's a character, and he sang and hosted us fantastically in his town, and gave me this song. He wrote the words and the tune, and they express his 3 core beliefs that I think stand for all Unitarians in Transylvania, and that is his loyalty to his land, probably first, his people and their language, their culture, that would be second, and his God. Those 3 things. I'm singing in Hungarian, but you see the translation there. Hilleszekelföldhöz, métáplalesel takar. Hilleszeknépemhez, méten jakar. Hilleszekítemhez, ki mindig számon tart. Gondban és örömben, az dasalize tart. Az erőt, az hitet, a bajban hisetet, adett föl nepenek, remend új életet. And that's how Reverend Levi would sing it in his Transylvanian preacher get-up. This Wednesday, we're going to make a theme out of our community night dinner, and the cooks are going to present Hungarian soup, and Matt and Allegra are going to play dinner music, and our committee will decorate the tables with the boxes of embroidered tablecloths and carvings and so forth that we have. So a special view into our Hungarian partnership at the dinner this Wednesday. Also coming out this week in the midweek update, which I want to thank Scott Heise and Doug Brandon for always posting this information. In the midweek update, there is a link to a video. It's 14 minutes long, and it's called The Pilgrim's Journey. So you can click on that link. You can also just find it on YouTube, type Pilgrim's Journey, Bellingham Unitarian Fellowship, there it is. And it is a 14-minute video showing our trip. And that will give you an introduction to the whole Unitarianism in Transylvania very well. I want to share some direct experiences of the sacred that we hold in our memory here, our roots of the partnership. when we traveled there in 2017. Our choir joined a choir of Roma children, the children from the poorest, transient communities, and sang together. And that's thanks to Lisa Moss, who made the connection and set it up. We remember Reverend Tessie speaking in the pulpit with the cape about love and acceptance. Probably the first time a woman spoke in that pulpit. We remember Cindy Pfeiffer-Hoyt, Carrie, Koehnline, Haven, Silver, dancing around with the youth dance troupe in SEJC character. Matt and Allegra playing Transylvanian jam sessions with their fiddles, and Genius and my sisters joining in on their fiddles, and people coming around dancing. We didn't know it would be there, but while we were in Kolozsvár, it's the second biggest city in Romania, known as Cluj also. While we were there, the first ever Pride parade was arranged in the country of Romania. You know, the home of Ceausescu and forced disappearances, and you name it. Those, not only the Hungarians, the minority now, but any people that weren't in the power group have been oppressed there and continue to be. So the fact that they organized a pride parade while we were there was irresistible. I remember, you'll see in the video, but I remember Lisa Heesen, Beth Fuller, Karen and Chad Knuckles-Flynn and others waving the pride flags going down the street in Kolozsvár. In the town, the village, they take us on a tour of their homes and farms, and the men showed us their draft animals and their corn cribs and their carts. And the women showed us their homes, which are just covered with embroidered items, you know, and their clothing. They made everything themselves. We saw the members of the congregation going down the road with the rakes and hoes over their shoulder, going out to work in the field. And they prepared a dinner for us that we'll never forget. And afterwards, all the cooks came out. There's a picture of the cooks on the wall out there. And gave us this feast. There was Allegra. There's a picture of Allegra hugging this woman who was wearing green, right? And it just looks like they've been sisters forever. And they started to sing this song that sounded like the one I just sang. I'm just vigorous, you know, Cossack-sounding Hungarian. And Reka and George got up and sang with them. They knew these songs. We remember going to the village where Reka's grandfather was the Unitarian minister for 50 years. It's an old medieval stone village, a church, and it has a churchyard in the back with a kopiafa, which is a memorial pole. It's one like we have. Outside, downstairs, when you go downstairs for potluck lunch, look out the window. We created our own Hungarian-style memorial pole. Jan Krauskop is nodding. Her husband, Rick, helped carve that thing. And it has symbols on it that tell the story from birth through life into infinity. Those carvings and those runes on that pole mean something in ancient Hungarian runic. So in the churchyard of Hamrod Saint-Martin, where Reka's grandfather was the preacher, there was a kopiafa with his name on it and the years of his service. And Reka was traveling with her brother, Zsombor, and they spoke to us about him. And I think they were telling stories about him that the Hungarians hadn't even heard. Well, there was a big bell tower in the back of this churchyard. And Barbara Gilday was walking around, and she heard singing. She thought, is this a recording? What is this? And she followed her ears, and she went up the circular stairs. And there was the Phoenix Ensemble singing Locus Iste by Bruckner. And she says it was one of the transformative spiritual experiences of her life. in that tower. We were going to sing in SEJC, but the church had sprung a leak, and they couldn't take us inside. So they said, maybe you'd like to do an outdoor concert. And there was a lavender field on the hillside. And it was a deep valley like this. The hillside was here, south-facing, surrounded by lavender. We put up ribbons to make a proscenium. And then you saw the town down there with the steeples, and the steeples were covered with stork nests, huge. Looked like the storks had 20-foot wingspan. And on the other side of the village, the hills went up like this. And we were singing, soon I will be done with the troubles of the world, the troubles of the world, troubles of the world. I'm gone to live with God. I'm gone to live with God. And then we heard the echo come back. God, 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 God. And I looked at the choir. I said, sing that again. God, God, God. We did it about 20 times. God was talking to us, you see. You can remember Ron Quinn and Jim Reimer's face. When they sing, it's just sheer joy on their face. You can just see Jim there going, God! He wouldn't stop. Also, in the church of Reverend Levi, who gave me the song, The Oath, it's a medieval church with walls. It was a fortified church. They would gather in there when the invading whoever it was next came around to shoot arrows, you know, protect themselves. It's a UNESCO heritage site, this church in Nagyoita. Reverend Levi's wife made this felt hanging here for us. His daughter sang for us as she served the food. His son came to our talent show at the end of the tour and played his nose flute and danced. But we sang there in their sanctuary, and I'll tell you, these sanctuaries, they are so beautifully decorated and so intricately. It's like, you know, a Ukrainian Christmas egg. That kind of intricate, colorful Eastern European design on the pews, on the walls, everywhere. And then there's carved wood, that's a specialty. The gates and the doors and the pulpits, everything are intricately carved. And we were singing in our stoles and their church, and we had a song together, Alleluia, by Thompson. And we were singing it, and we just saw the entire congregation weeping. And we were weeping. And Cindy Pfeiffer-White remembers how afterwards, this woman came up to her and hugged her and kissed her, and they had no common language except love. So I want you to look at the insert. The information, this is giving you a quick update, but especially look at the face of their new minister, Reverend Ellard Search. The search committee came up with the right guy there. His last name is Search. Ellard Search. He's 31. We're going to talk about him next week. And the visions he has, you can read a little bit here. The vision he has for their vibrant future. And also, we're talking about what our visions are for our future with them. Because things are changing over there. And you might have thought that they're just dying out. But no. It's not the case. So I look forward to sharing that vibrant future with you next week. Our partnership so far has allowed what were really life-changing opportunities, like for Bev and Carl and Kat McIntyre and everyone who went there many times on their own. Different groups went there on their own, and we brought Reverend Tomasz and Kato here. And thanks to Lisa Moss, we brought Ilana Andrews, the Gypsy Children's Choir director, here. We've had a lot of exchange back and forth. And it's given us a chance to return some of their hospitality. They're specialists. To learn about them, which is learning about us, and to have some service opportunity. I think it's a vital partnership. I think that when you engage in a partnership, you commit. Okay, it's 34 years now. But we're committed to this partnership. We're not just going to quit it. We want to see it through. And we want to see how we can grow it. You know, there was some criticism that the partnerships were colonial, patriarchal. It was us Americans helping the poor them. But I think it's shifting now to the thought that we can respect each other and learn from each other and gain as much from each other each direction. And so that's what I see in our future. I want to end by leading you through our favorite hymn, Spirit of Life, in English and then in Hungarian, and you have it on the insert here. The Hungarian is very easy. Just sing the phonetic version in italics there. And hit it, Ian.
To adjust this. Roots hold me close. That is a verse from the hymn Spirit of Life, which Kevin just led us in singing, and thank you, Carrie, also. It is also the verse that inspired our service title today, Deep Roots, Vibrant Growth. We've spent some time in the service highlighting our long-standing relationship since 1992 with our partner church in Magyarszovat, in the region of Transylvania, in the country of Romania. There are, in fact, over 100 UU congregations who have or have had partner churches in Transylvania, and there's a good reason for that. If you spent much time in a UU congregation, or you've taken some version of the Pathways for Newcomers class, either here at Buff or some other UU congregation, then you likely know that the Unitarian side of our faith tradition has some of its deepest roots in Transylvania, dating back to the 16th century. And you likely associate the beginning of the Unitarian Church in Transylvania with King John Sigismund, who Kevin mentioned briefly, and an edict of religious tolerance in 1557 allowing, quote, Each person may maintain whatever religious faith he wishes. Sounds pretty reasonable today, but at the time, it was revolutionary. That edict of religious tolerance created room for Unitarianism to take hold in Transylvania, and by 1571, Unitarianism was recognized as one of 4 received religions of the realm, along with Calvinism, Lutheranism, and Catholicism. This official recognition gave Unitarianism a degree of security it did not have in other areas of Europe, thereby allowing its roots to grow deep. So deep that Transylvania still has the second highest number of UUs in the world after the United States. King John Sigismund certainly seemed ahead of his time in making that possible. As UU historian and minister David Bumbaugh from the book that I mentioned earlier, as he describes it, quote, religious toleration was the hallmark of King Sigismund's reign, and although he identified as Unitarian himself, he, quote, only demanded of those who disagreed that they live in peace with those with whom they differed. The consequence was that this was one of the few places in Europe where the Protestant Reformation was carried out without bloodshed. It's a lovely story. An innovative and progressive king, religious tolerance, no bloodshed, and now here we are hundreds of years later with a partner church from the very area where all of these historical events took place that are so important to our movement. But that's not the full story. That edict of tolerance in Transylvania in 1557 stood out precisely because of the rampant intolerance elsewhere in Europe. Intolerance that did result in bloodshed, a lot of it. And I'll give just one example of what I'm talking about. Between 1535 and 1546, so about just 10 years, approximately 30,000 followers of left-wing Protestantism were put to death in the regions of Holland and Friesland alone. This is where our story takes a dark turn for just a moment, and I do want to issue a trigger warning. I will be mentioning the death of one of our ancestors, and the details are a bit intense. I will tell you when I'm about to get specific, so if you want to plug your ears or step outside of the sanctuary, you are welcome to do so. I am choosing to mention this death because I think it's important to be aware of what our UU ancestors went through. We who sit in this sanctuary this morning, almost 500 years later in 2025, we are, at least with regard to religion, able to safely pursue a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. You may recognize that language. As we are able to find out today, the same cannot be said for our ancestors. Our story resumes within our Unitarian history in Europe in the 16th century, just a few decades before King John Sigismund's Edict of Tolerance. Martin Luther had posted his 95 Theses on the door of the Castle Church in Wittenberg, Germany in 1517, prompting the Protestant Reformation and a widespread reexamination of teaching and practice within Christianity. Out on the left-wing edges of the Protestant Reformation, there were some radical reformers who sought a total reexamination of Christianity, including the doctrine of the Trinity. The Trinity meaning God manifest in 3 persons: God the Father, God the Son, Jesus Christ, God the Holy Spirit. So those radical reformers, our Unitarian ancestors, found no basis in the Bible for the doctrine of the Trinity. They argued that God was not 3, but 1, a single unitary God, thus Unitarianism. One of the most radical of the reformers was Spanish theologian Michael Servetus. Servetus was born in Spain in 1511, within just a few years of Martin Luther having posted those 95 Theses. Over the course of his life, Servetus worked in geography, astronomy, and astrology. He was a professor of mathematics. He attended medical school and practiced as a doctor. He made significant contributions in the field of medicine, and he published Ptolemy's geography. But as far as our UU tradition is concerned, Servetus's most meaningful contribution came through his theological writings. Having grown up in Spain, Servetus witnessed firsthand the violence of the Spanish Inquisition, watching as thousands of Jews and Muslims were jailed, tortured, even burned at the stake for their refusal to accept Orthodox Christian doctrine, particularly around the Trinity. a doctrine that to many Jews and Muslims seemed to violate monotheism. God in three persons sure did sound like polytheism. Servetus would soon discover the Trinity was not mentioned anywhere in the Christian Bible. As historian David Bumbaugh describes it, from where Servetus sat, the Trinity was a teaching for which men and women were being burned at the stake, but was nowhere spelled out in the teachings of Jesus or the apostles. So over the course of 2 decades, Servetus would go on to publish several groundbreaking works articulating his anti-Trinitarian theology, the first of which he wrote when he was only 20, and the last of which defined God as everywhere, the complete essence of all things. Sounds a bit like Ralph Waldo Emerson's transcendentalism to me. But over the course of the 2 decades that Servetus wrote, he also made many enemies over his heretical ideas, the angriest and most dangerous of which was none other than John Calvin himself. Ultimately, Calvin would make Servetus pay for his spiritual convictions with his life. And here we have our trigger warning. What I'm about to share will take approximately 1 minute, so take care of yourself. Following Calvin's orchestration of a carefully executed plan, in 1553, Servetus was arrested and charged with heresy. Following a trial in Geneva that was anything but fair, Michael Servetus was, quote, led from his cell, bound to a stake, and with his offending books strapped to his thigh, was burned to death and his ashes scattered. According to Servetus historian Marion Hiller, when given one final chance before his execution to confess his errors and recognize, quote, Christ, the eternal Son of God, Servetus declined. His last words were, O Jesus, Son of the eternal God, have mercy on me. So convicted was he in his own search for truth and meaning that he died for his beliefs. But his death was not in vain. Despite Calvin's hopes, Servetus' death was by no means the end of his influence and contributions. Servetus' unique religious beliefs were an impetus for Unitarianism. He also changed the course of the Protestant Reformation, whose proponents originally were really only interested in the reform of corrupt practices and not so much in doctrine. Through his living and writing and instigating, Servetus forced the reformers to address the issue, making the doctrine of the Trinity a central concern. But of perhaps even greater impact was the reaction to Servetus' execution, which was swift and strong across Europe. Calvin's brutality was widely denounced, even among those who disagreed with Servetus' doctrines and ideas. People united and cries rang out for religious tolerance and freedom, the loudest of which arguably came from French scholar, theologian, and preacher Sebastian Castellio of Basel. Castellio was clear he did not agree with Servetus' views, and still, he made a strong plea for tolerance. He wrote the following to Calvin: Before God and from the bottom of my heart, I call to you in the spirit of love. Let me have the liberty of my faith as you have yours. At the heart of religion, I am one with you. It is in reality the same religion. Only on certain points of interpretation I see differently from you. But however we differ in opinion, why cannot we love one another? There are, I know, persons who insist that we should believe even against reason. It is, however, the worst of all errors, and it is laid on me to fight it. Let no one think he is doing wrong in using his mental faculties. It is our proper way of arriving at truth. Castellio made a plea for tolerance. Just 4 years later, in 1557, too late for Servetus, but King John Sigismund would issue his first edict of tolerance. The religious tolerance urged by Castellio and adopted by King John Sigismund was arguably a precursor to our very own UU fourth principle that today affirms and promotes a, quote, free and responsible search for truth and meaning in our spiritual life. In 1891, 308 years after Servetus' death, several traveling Unitarian ministers passed through the Bellingham area, freely sharing their faith. In 1905, 352 years after Servetus' death, the first Unitarian Society of Bellingham was formed at the home of Mary Slade. And although that original society disbanded in the 1920s, according to Buff historian Dan Witter, in 1949, 396 years after Servetus's death, a small gathering of Unitarian intellectuals began holding discussion groups on ethics and morals at the Bellingham Library. That small group would ultimately become Buff, a congregation of hundreds who meets every week in this beautiful building. Friends, we who sit in this sanctuary, we who continue in relationship with our partner church in Magyarszovat, Transylvania, we are carrying forward a spiritual thread that runs all the way back to the 16th century. Current times are rough, and many of our human siblings in these United States and around the world are facing marginalization and oppression, and we have a long way to go. And thanks to our ancestors, at least we do not live in fear of inquisition or death at the stake for exploration that we do here every week at Buff. Books are, in many ways right now, burning, but at least we are not. That is something I think worth celebrating. The religious landscape also may be changing around us, but we've weathered similar storms. The roots of our Unitarian Universalist tradition are strong, so strong that I believe they can support the vibrant growth of what is to come. So part of our vibrant growth comes through your financial support of the work of this congregation. And we're now going to take our offering as Kevin and Ian play Hungarian Dance by Johannes Brahms as a duet. And as they do so, our ushers may come forward at this time. And please note that Kevin, as he mentioned, will be returning next week specifically for the special collection for our partner church in Magyarszovat. What goes in the plate today will go to Buff unless you specify you want your funds to go to the partner church. I have loved our music today. Thank you all. And as we begin to leave this sacred space today and go back out into the world, may we honor the deep roots of this congregation and our Unitarian Universalist tradition as we look toward vibrant growth in our present and in our future. As Carrie extinguishes our chalice today, we affirm that we extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And now, our closing song, Circle Round for Freedom.